very long time. I think probably, gosh, I love the original trilogy. I don't know how you've, or not trilogy. There's five of them, but I don't know, like of course the original one is the best with Charlton Heston. I also really like the third
And
one, which
they're
is
the
Escape.
apes.
uh, the third one, Escape from One of the Apes, kind of reads like fan fiction, but I love it and I will defend it with all my heart. It is ridiculous, but I love it. Have you seen the other ones besides the first?
I've seen the original. I saw the one with James Franco and
Mhm.
the one with Russell Crowe, but I haven't seen anything after that.
Oh,
I'm
it's
down with
okay.
him. I fully respect and appreciate the symbolism, the
Mhm.
themes behind the stories.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a great work of science fiction, and I
Mhm.
think it should be appreciated. Right
I
on.
love it. I
Without,
especially love Dr. Zira. Zira is my
yeah,
favorite. Yeah.
I know.
Caesar's a close second.
We're gonna talk about getting kinky with Dr. Z. So
Yes.
ladies and gentlemen, I am honored. I love this woman. She's so great. From the beginning, before I even started this podcast, I met this woman, promoting my book. I have a book called Your Kinky Friends, and she was doing clown porn and Pep Love, and we just kind of connected and started talking. And
Oh,
throughout the years, she's been on my show, and I've supported her and Pep Love.
mhm.
This woman is a symbol of kink, creativity, wonderful. I was
Thank
sick. I was dying in the hospital, and I had like uninspired. I see
you.
Amy Mercury on my feed, on my Instagram feed, on my Twitter. There's beauty and creativity and whimsical, beautiful
Thank
creativity.
you.
Amy Mercury, please welcome. Welcome to YKF. Love
Yay.
you. How are you doing?
Oh, I'm doing great. And thank you for that lovely introduction, Nick. I always am happy to talk to you. And I'm so sorry that you were sick for a while. Like I said, I didn't know until you told me the other day. And, I'm glad you filled me in, but I had no idea. And I'm sorry that I wasn't there to, reach out and check on you.
Oh, you're always here in spirit. So I gotta ask the question, Amy, what's inspiring you these days?
A lot of things. I've been focusing a lot more on cosplay, specifically on creature effects makeup. So, hence why I've already started it here. And I'm actually going to be doing the makeup on the show here so people can see the process. Uh, the character I am working on now is Mojo Jojo from the Powerpuff Girls. So, if people don't remember the show or have never watched it, he's a villainous ape that is like mutated, and his whole goal is to destroy the Powerpuff Girls and take over the world. That is his main goal in life, and he's fun. He's quirky. He's one of my favorite villains. Just a really fun character to work with. Incredibly dramatic, like overly dramatic. Like think your most dramatic cartoon villain. That's basically Mojo.
Oh, we're gonna talk about villains. So I want to talk about monster. You're a professional monster now. These days, you're a professional monster. Before, you were a farting clown. Which is great, which is awesome.
Well,
Yeah, it's the beauty, the evolution of kink and creativity is pretty amazing. So I want to ask you: is there a monster in all of us?
oh well. I think so, but I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing. In fact, the whole point of the professional monster, this sort of a campaign that I've been on recently, in which I refer to myself as the professional monster, is all about that, about kind of saying, like, well, yeah, maybe you're a monster because of what society labels you to be, because you don't fit in with the norms, because you may not follow all the rules. But maybe that's not such a bad thing. Maybe the monster is really just an expression of our desire to break away from the mundane and to be our most authentic self.
Yes, I love this. So, Amy, what kind of monster are you?
Oh gosh. you know, I've done so many different ones. I've I did an orc look a while back. I wore that to the Ren Fair actually, down here in Florida, back around March. The first like creature look. I mean, I did like an orc look back a while ago, like a couple of years ago, But it was about a year ago that I started doing these more extreme creature effects. Like this prosthetic, I actually made myself. I cast the mold, I poured the latex, and I started doing that about a year ago when I cosplayed Beast from X-Men. And I decided, if I'm going to do this cosplay, I really got to do it up big. And so I decided to learn how to cast a prosthetic. So I made that one was very simple. It was just like a jutting brow, but I learned how to do the makeup. And after that, I started doing other characters. Around Halloween, I did a werewolf look. In the early spring, like I said, I did an orc look, and I did full prosthetics for that. I had like a nose, a eyebrow piece. I even had like a scar going down my cheek. Then I did a monkey girl look that was kind of like the precursor to Mojo here. And now the newest look in that lineup is Mojo.
Nice. Speaking of transformation, I think it's what you're doing is very symbolic in the kink community. We're all when we kind of become ourselves and we embrace, our sexuality and our kink and our creativity, you transforming into a monster or into whatever, right?
Yeah.
Is I think symbolic of everybody watching this. We're all we transform ourselves when we embrace kink and we embrace our own sexuality and our creativity. And I think that's beautiful. So please take us through the process. One of the things that I noticed when in kink, for example, like you'll get a caller on Pep Love or something like that. And at first they're a little cocky, and then eventually they kind of let themselves go. And they sink into it. So when you're doing all this, when you're putting this makeup on, when in the process do you kind of know that you sink into the role? Like, is it as soon as you put the makeup on, or do you need to like have a bunch on first to kind of really get into character?
That's a very good question. I think it happens a little bit over time. Like as I transform, it's not just a switch that gets turned on. It's more like, I guess, a lever you gently pull until, once I'm fully in the makeup, then I really start to feel it. Like the first time, like when I'm all done and I'm looking at myself in the mirror and I'm like, oh, yes, I think that it's interesting you say about how we transform in a figurative sense in the kink community, and relating that to. I'm glad you picked up on that. That it is a very symbolic thing, and I'll get into that more later. But because there is a very deep emotional connection between me and the transformations I do.
Of course, and I mean, there's a reason to do it, and there's a reason to keep on doing it. And that was one of the questions I wanted to ask you. I usually ask, a lot of people in the community or in the lifestyle, it gets hard and they feel like they want to give up or leave and kind of, but like, you're doing it. It was beautiful. I love seeing, like, as I was talking about, I watching you like on my feed, right? And seeing it, I'm like, this woman's doing it. She's doing something.
Thank you.
Just sitting there, you're not just dreaming, you're actually creating the fantasy in a way.
Well, because that's kind of the.
Was there ever a time you wanted to like stop this? Because like it costs money, time, energy, stuff like that. And what made you keep going?
It's actually funny you should mention that. I have had several episodes of that over the past couple of years. I back in 2021, I had a kind of like a whole long year of kind of questioning what I'm doing and thinking, oh my gosh, is this right? I said I'm never really going to have a normal life. And finally, I came to the conclusion, it's like, well, all right, because of what I am and what I do, I may never have a normal life. And even if I really wanted to have a normal life, it would mean a sacrifice of everything that I am. So I came to the conclusion that, no, I may not have a normal life, but I have a life that a lot of people will never know. I have something very unique. And that's what I try to tell myself. A couple weeks back, I'd had a lot of things going on in my personal life, a lot of financial setbacks and difficulty with work projects and just feeling incredibly overwhelmed. And I thought to myself, I should just quit. I'm done. No one really cares about this monster thing. It's just me. And then I calmed down and reminded myself, I'm like, no, you don't have a normal life. Yes, it is complicated and challenging, but that's part of leading a kind of alternative life.
Yeah. Yeah. Bola Bola asks, "Are you going to paint your nails too?"
Paint my nails. Since in the Mojo Jojo look he wears white gloves, I'm just I'll probably have my nails done for when I go wear this look at Fetish Con, uh, the second week of August. But I'm going to be wearing white gloves, so nobody will even see them.
Speaking of, throughout the show, I want to promote yourself. Where are you going to be? Your appearances and everything. Drop
Oh,
everything.
sure, sure.
Drop all your links and dates.
Let's see. Well, I will be going to FetishCon in St. Petersburg, Florida. That is August 8th through the 11th. And that is an event that I think that you would really enjoy, Nick. If you ever get a chance to go, I highly recommend it because, I think it is the embodiment of your kinky friends. It is it's a complete hotel takeover for one thing. So you don't have any normies, excuse the expression. Um, and it's pretty much anything you can think of as a fetish is somehow represented there. I mean, I did my beast look there and debuted that last year, and it was very well received. And I'm going to be debuting this look there as well. They have something called the Superheroine Showdown, where they have fetish models that come on stage dressed as various comic book heroes and villains. And we have kind of like a little play fight on stage where people get tied up, and it's a lot of fun. But like I said, every fetish you can think of is somehow represented there, and it's such a friendly environment filled with a mixture of both lifestyle kinksters and fetish models. So,
All right. I got the important question to ask now, Amy.
okay.
What is monster sex like?
Monster sex like? I'm not even sure. Because to be honest, I've never actually had sex in one of my looks before. Because the one thing about the monster kink and transformation is that you know it's not there are no monsters. Okay, like you can't really transform. You're just putting on a costume. So it's in a way it's like it's a fetish that will never be truly real. So I guess being able to make myself look like one is about as close as one can get. But as far as actually having sex in the look, I haven't done that yet. It's been more self pleasure, really. Um, but I'm not going to say it's not out of the realm of the possibility for the future.
Are there sissy monsters?
Sissy monsters?
Yeah.
Good
No, like
question.
the fetish, the sissy fetish.
I've not seen one, but that doesn't mean it. I've seen a lot more in clown look before.
Sissy clowns. Okay.
Yeah, I've seen that a lot. And I guess, clowns are colorful. It really makes sense that would lend itself well to sissydom, I think, because it's colorful and, a clown is kind of an androgynous sort of thing too, anyway. So I think that'd be easy to
We're,
translate.
we're definitely going to talk about clowns. But Bola Bola has a question,
Okay.
totally non sequitur, but that's cool. How
Okay.
can I approach to expat kinksters living in Mexico? I am a Mexican sub, and here BDSM life is still underground. So, for someone who's in another country,
Hmm.
BDSM is very underground. Um, how
Hmm.
do they approach other
That's
kinksters?
that's a good question. Let's see. Probably the internet is the best way to find people. You can, if you have a fet life, um, you can find, while you can't really search for people by location on FetLife, you can look for groups of people in your area and see if there are munches and things like that. And FetLife is much more, I think it's much more private still than a lot of other social media that's out there, or more discreet, I would imagine. So I would recommend checking FetLife. And it is, I'm sorry that you have to go through that, that it's,
Hmm.
for it to be very underground, but that would be my best recommendation to you.
So back to your transformation. What
Okay.
is needed? What are like the basic things that you need to do this? Like you don't even start without having everything. What is needed?
Well, to as far as just having the fetish, it can just be whatever's going on in your mind. As to be
Good
honest,
point.
huh? Huh? Did you say something?
Yeah, I said it was. That's a very good point. That's a very good point.
But as far as just enjoying the fetish, uh, that's really, it can exist in your mind. And honestly, until very recently, that's about the only place it could exist until I learn how to do these creatures. But that is one thing that I am learning as I am doing this look, is that it requires a lot of stuff. Uh, I feel like I am always like at Dollar Tree picking up new things to add to it. I feel like I'm always buying latex. I feel like I am always buying more makeup. Uh, like little supplies here or there. I'm always at craft stores and Lowe's, trying to buy more stuff. So it can get a little pricey. But my recommendation is just you buy the stuff as you need it. And I got that recommendation. I'm actually taking classes online for the Stan Winston School of Creature Design. And it's taught me a lot of things. And one of the things they suggested was, don't buy everything at once, just buy it as you need it. So latex, makeup, there's something called hydrocal that I use. It's basically like a plaster that I use to create the molds that I then can pour the latex into to make the prosthetics. So that's just kind of the tip of the iceberg of what you need.
What material though? What makes a good material for makeup like this? Like what materials are the best?
Let's see what I use now. This isn't necessarily what they're going to be using like in Hollywood. Like you're having in Hollywood, they use something called alcohol colors, which are kind of pricey, and I haven't quite graduated to that yet. What I use is something called Mayron. This is the Mayron Paradise collection. They're not very expensive, and they go a long way. But basically, they are water activated. You take a brush, you dip it into water, and then you just swirl it around until it gets kind of a creamy texture, like foundation, and then you apply it to your face.
All right. So what are the worst materials to use? What are the mistakes? The ones that you'll never use again. You tell people whatever you do, don't use those.
Well, let's see. I feel like I want to caution people like, okay, if you're just trying it and you want to get a feel for it, you can try a brand called Snazzaroo. They're kind of just your El Cheapo. They're the cheaper version of this, but they aren't as good. And so I think they're fine to start with, but you want to graduate quickly to using something like Mayron. So that would be one of my big things to caution against. So right now I'm just kind of filling in the different looks here. I'm taking this brush and just gently kind of filling in the lines on my face here.
So, you're talking about money before. Kink communities, money always plays an issue.
Yes.
So how do you monster on a budget?
Let's see. Well, like I said, the true monster is about what's going on in your head. You don't need any makeup at all to really make it happen in your head. So if you find that this is a fetish that you like, transformation, monsters, things like that, you don't actually need the makeup. It's just fun. But creating a monster look could be as simple as finding a cheap costume on Amazon, and because it's really what's in your imagination that's most important.
Now, this is a process, obviously, and one of the things doing something like this, just like getting ready for a scene or getting ready for a night out or something like that, there's always a nervous, and it could be a beautiful nervous energy. You wouldn't do it if you didn't have it, but there's a concern. So when you're doing all this, what are you concerned about during the process?
I every time I start, I put it on, I start putting the makeup on, especially when I put the first coat of color on. I stop and I go, oh God, this is going to look terrible. Even though I know it's not. It's like, don't, it's like, I've just started. There is no way to know how it's actually going to turn out now. And I've done the look a handful of times. I still have that moment of fear when I put everything on. I'm like, oh no, it's going to be terrible. What do I do? To this day.
I know I feel the same way when it comes to, because I like to dress up, you
Mhm.
know. I'm into the whole, femdom, force femme thing, and if I'm in a
Mhm.
French maid outfit or something like that,
Love it.
um, I look at it and I'm like, there's that point where like the nervousness, the anxiety just swoops in. And you're like, what the hell am I doing? What am I
Oh,
looking at?
yes.
And then eventually you kind of just let yourself sink into the character.
That moment of self-awareness, yes, where it just
So that moment, right? How would you
Mhm,
describe that feeling? Like when you become your monster or become whoever you want to become, transform
mhm,
into. How
mhm.
would you personally describe that?
Well, let's see, it's anxiety, it's fear, it's apprehension, it's kind of
When you're
stage.
done, when you did, like when you're completed.
Oh, when I'm complete. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Oh, now that is just a feeling of like, "Ah, yes, I did it." That is absolute achievement, and I'm like, "Oh, see, I told," and also a little bit of relief. It's like, "Okay, it's done. The pressure's off." But, it is that feeling of accomplishment, and for me, the relief is more than just having it done. We'll talk a lot about, because I know, like we've, talked about shame as a topic before, um, and there's a big link between that and being the monster, and somehow about putting it on. There's something about putting it on that relieves a lot of that shame for me. So, I'll get more into that later, but
Yeah,
I think that that's a very big part of it.
definitely. And then, of course, we have a question someone asked: how do you describe having sex or doing anything sexual in a character? So, even if it's for your own how would you describe that?
Let's see. It's a very empowering feeling for me. For a lot of people who have the transformation fetish, I've actually had this discussion on FetLife. Um, a lot of people who like it, they like the idea of power being taken away. They want to be turned into something that takes away their power, like turned into like a doll or a pillow or something like that. Whereas most of the creatures that I enjoy in transforming into, they give me power. Now, in the moment in which I'm transforming, I lose power because I'm having something happen to me. Like when I make videos, for example, I'm having something happen to me that I can't control. But once I just let it happen, I turn into something powerful. So, like an orc, or I did a She-Hulk look. And Mojo, for example, is a character that seems very powerful to me. Um, so I guess, for me, it's being able to, I don't know, kind of gain power back in a way, if that makes sense.
One thing that I think I really connected with you is your graphic novel, Orc Girl.
Ah,
Right.
yes.
So, I mean, I was really blown away. I just wrote Your Kinky Friends. I just started interviewing people to promote the book, to make this podcast, basically. It's
Uh-huh.
a whimsical thing. I'm not doing it to make money or exploit people or anything like that. Trying to help the show and celebrate the community. So, but I
Mhm.
saw that. I saw your work. I was so inspired by it. First of all, the artwork is amazing, I must say. The
Thank you very much.
stories, fun, whimsical, and everything like that. So please tell us through the evolution of Orc Girl. How did it come into fruition, and where is it now?
Let's see. Well, I still work on it, although I've taken a bit of a hiatus for a while, just as I've been focusing more on my creature looks, because I love Orc Girl. Um, I really, when I started creating it, I wanted to create a fantasy story that was more for adults. Because a lot of fantasy stories, it's like a coming of age story, and that's great. But I want something else at this point in my life. So I set about creating kind of a kinky fantasy story with it, and it has grown along with me. Although, admittedly, in recent times, I have been getting kind of burned out on working on it because, the fun
It takes a
part,
lot out of you.
huh?
It takes a lot out of you.
Yeah, and I gotta say, it's tough marketing a comic that is kinky but isn't just porn. Um,
Mhm.
it's a story and there's kinky elements to it. Now, for whatever reason, HBO could get away with it with Game of Thrones, but I can't. So, um, you know, that is the problem I've run into a lot is how do I market this comic? Because for a lot of people, for a general audience, it's too much sex. But for a audience that's looking for erotica, there's not enough sex. So it is a problem that I face a lot.
I I dealt with the same thing. Your kinky friends and my books aren't porn. They're
Yeah,
very sexual because I'm a very sexual person. My experiences, but
yeah,
they're telling a story, a human story,
yeah.
and I personally think Orc Girl is going to be appreciated from years to come. It's not going to be really understood or appreciated as much as it should be until long after. But that's the beauty of
Okay.
art. That's the beauty of art, I think.
Yeah.
So we got some questions.
Okay.
DL Joey asks, "Hi, are you doing any ABDL stuff anymore?"
I still do. I don't do it as actively as I used to just because I've kind of branched out to doing a lot of other things too. Um, I just kind of whenever like a little bit of inspiration strikes me to like, oh, I got an idea for an ABDL clip, I'll do it. But I'm trying to expand what I offer now, and so I'm always open to hear new ideas if people have something kind of interesting or fun that they'd like to see on my ABDL store.
With the ABDL, a lot of people get a lot of flack in the ABDL community.
Yeah.
So I was wondering, have you had any pushback or criticism or just straight up ignorance when it comes to, because any of your work in ABDL stuff? And how did you deal with it?
I've been very fortunate that I haven't experienced too much. Mostly, I've just got people who didn't get it, and they would have a very visceral reaction to it. And when I really sat and described it to them, I'm like, well, I said, in a way, I said, I think regardless of where you are on the ABDL spectrum, whether you're an adult, you're the adult baby, or you're into the diaper lover element, it is a reaction to stress. And something about it relieves the stress for a lot of people. And that seems to be the one thing that kind of unites the people in the fetish. And I said, you have to remember, I said, it's play acting, it's make believe. We're all adults at the end of the day, and we're just playing out a fantasy. And I always have loved make believe, and I think that's why I've gravitated towards the monster thing so much. But I feel like as adults we forget to play, and we forget what
Yes.
play looks like. And so when people are doing it, there's this visceral reaction of that you're doing something wrong. But I'm like, well,
Yeah.
why should we
Yeah.
stop playing just because we're adults? Maybe we use different toys this time, but but we should still enjoy make believe. There's nothing wrong with that.
Oh, speaking of toys, Orc Girl
Hmm.
starts out. You begin your journey in Orc Girl using a toy, I believe, right?
Um,
Or
well,
masturbating, or using toys.
I mean, mostly, I guess, it was a fantasy in my own head,
Yeah,
for a very
yeah.
long
So
time.
I meant the character,
Mhm.
not you personally, but the character.
Oh,
So
no.
what toys are doing it for you these days?
Oh, let's see. My favorite toy is something called the Satisfier Pro. And basically, it is a toy that you put on your clit, and it has a suction motion. So it's a very different sensation than, say, like a vibrator. Um, I think it's a very interesting toy, a lot of fun. And I have had different iterations of it and really loved each one.
Is it similar to like the rose? The rose that
Mhm.
kind of sucks on it. Interesting.
Yep, yep.
And finally,
Same
this is a
concept.
very important question because
Okay.
Amy, I remember this. You used to do this kind of porn, and I think I applaud you for it. So,
Uh-huh.
are farts the universal language?
I'm gonna be honest, they're not my favorite content to do, and I don't do them anymore. I did them because they were popular, but I mean, I guess they're a universal language, and that people seem to have similar reactions to them. uh, but I gotta say, it's not really a part of my brand that I'm so happy with anymore.
Okay. But hey, everybody does it.
Mhm. Right,
Um,
I suppose so. Nothing really to
Selected
be
reader asks, "Do you have any femdom sessions as a monster?"
that would be really fun. I've never actually done an in-person session. I stick primarily to just doing videos and phone sex and things like that. That would be really fun. And um, I think if I had it was with the right person and someone I really trusted to be with, I wouldn't be opposed to doing a session with them like that. And I think that would help me really get into the vibe a little bit better too, since I've never done session work. I've only done video. It's easy for me to act on camera, but I think I might struggle in person to actually do it. But if I were playing a monster and feeling very powerful, I think that would actually make it a lot easier for me.
No one in Pep Love calls you up and be like, "I'm scared the monster's gonna get me," and you're like, "Yeah."
Let's see. I'm trying to think if I've had a monster call like that. I've had I've had calls where I've turned other people into creatures. In fact, one of my favorite calls
Really?
was a werewolf themed one. Yeah, where the person wanted to be, they were turned into a werewolf, and we had to have sex to get them to turn back. And that was so fun because that's like so my vibe. I'm like, yeah, I'm into it. Let's do it. You know, um, or I've had scenarios where I've turned other people into objects or things like that.
So can I use this as a quote for the I was gonna use well that's oh it's not coming through, damn it. I've turned people into werewolves.
Okay.
Wouldn't
Turn
I
people-
wouldn't let it go through.
yes.
I've
I
turned
love
people
that.
into werewolves. I've all right,
I
this
love
hand
that. I've
question.
turned people into werewolf. I love. Yes, absolutely. You can use that. That's brilliant. That's does seem like something that is well within my vibe.
Stan Vladimir has a question. If you
Okay.
could have any superpower, what would it be, and how would you use it in your kink life?
Good question. I've always really wanted to fly. I thought that would be, and the way flight prices are getting these days, it'd be very helpful. But I've always wanted to fly ever since I watched like Peter Pan growing up.
Yeah. Oh, it finally goes through. Look, I've turned people into werewolves.
I've turned people into werewolves. Yeah. Yes. It was all me.
Before we get into Pep Love, which of course we're going to do it, the Kate question. Kate
Okay.
West, shout out to Kate West. She asked the question, why are men so obsessed with their own asshole?
That's a very good question, and I think a reasonable one to ask. Um, I think that there's a lot of taboos when it comes to men and anything anal involved because you know like they think of anal sex, they think of homosexuality, and so I think it's something that's seen as very taboo. For like it's one thing for women, because we already in during sex it's kind of established that we are to be penetrated versus men who do the penetration. So I think however, that the fact that it is so stigmatized is part of the appeal in the first place. It seems something forbidden and something that I think and of course, you do anything anal involved, you want to be, in my opinion, with somebody you really trust. I think that is especially true for a lot of men. They need to be in the right headspace and with the right person that they really trust to do it well and to not compromise their masculinity in the process. Anal with trust, yes. Yes, yes, yes.
I want to take a screenshot of you doing this, just with this in the.
Okay. Yes. Absolutely.
I turn
Turn
people into
people into.
werewolves.
I love that is the slogan for the show tonight. Turn people into where. Yep, totally.
So, one thing I do want to do is look at your Instagram. Look at this. This is your transformation.
Oh,
So, look at these cosplay characters. All right, that's you.
Yes, it's like, because I'll tell you
And
what, like when I've got it on, like the adrenaline is there. I'm like pumped. I'm ready to go. The minute I take it off,
so take us through these characters. Which is, I mean, there's you, but then there's
let's
that.
see. There's Mojo Jojo. That's the character I'm currently turning into. Um, then the second one is She-Hulk, and then that was my orc look that I did at the Ren Fair back in March. So I someone commented like, you do a lot of green characters, and I go, huh. I guess I do. The orc lives in me. No matter what I do, I'm still an orc, right? You know.
Green is the balance of the spectrum.
Yes. It's
The
like I
orc
didn't even think
lives
about it. I'm like, oh my god, they're all green. What? Ah.
what I do. All right, let's talk about Pep Love. Any updates or changes? Anything? What's going on with Pep Love and you and Sarah and all that?
Oh, well,
Shout out to
everything.
Giselle.
Let's see. Oh, judge. It's been good. I actually just celebrated my 7-year anniversary with Pep. I cannot believe it has been that long, but 7 years I've worked with Pep. That's something, and it's great. I'm enjoying it. Let's see. Sarah has been back for a little while taking calls. She is still running the company, but she is actually retired from taking calls for the most part. But she is guest starring right now for a few weeks. So now's the time to talk to her if you want to chat with her. But she's been loving it. It's been good for her. So I'm really happy for her that she's been able to retire and focus just on running the company.
One thing that's interesting about the whole the phone sex dynamic is
Mm-hmm.
since it's not in person, the imagination can go wild,
Yeah.
and it never ends. So, any new kind of calls that are piquing your interest?
Ah, gosh. Let's see. Well, as far as anything new, no, but I feel like a one that I really enjoy doing. And oh, wait, no, I have. I guess it would be relate to transformation. Um, I did some calls recently where we explored something that's a common trope in fan fiction called sex pollen, where basically you're pollinated and you just get incredibly horny. And that was like the whole basis of the call. That was a lot of fun. And in the past, I've done a lot of interesting transformation
Wait,
stories. Hmm?
oh, before the wait, sex pollen, is that kind of like a reverse version of the happening?
I don't, I don't know. I mean, it's kind of a fan fiction trope where you have two characters get together that normally wouldn't, but they get infected by the sex pollen and now they're horny and they end up fucking. Like that. That's like literally like to my understanding of what it is. And there was someone that I did a call like that recently. It was really fun. I loved it. I was like, oh my gosh, this is totally my vibe. You know.
So, what was it, like a horror movie, like kind of, or like in that sense of like,
Oh no,
you
it
saw
was
that,
it was
or oh,
it was fun. It
extreme.
was it was just incredibly erotic and really fun.
That is
I
great.
I enjoyed it a lot.
I love the whimsical nature of kink and sex. So, what are some just little ways a typical couple who's boring and bland? What are some whimsical ways you could just kink things up?
Hmm.
Like,
Well,
emotional sex pollen.
emotional sex fall. you know, um, I think it's just don't not try something just because you're shy. And I think there's a lot of things that people would like to try that would spice up their sex life, but they're scared of rejection. They're scared of what their partner is going to think, and those are all very reasonable things. But I think that that's the importance of having good communication with your partner. Is you're like, if you want to try something, and even if if the partner says, I'm not really into it, you can meet halfway. Find a way that for that your partner to enjoy it, that doesn't make the other person uncomfortable. So that's the importance of communicating what you're into.
We have some questions from Lil S. Um,
Mhm.
she asks, or they ask, excuse me, how do you describe having sex or doing? Oh wait, where's this wrong one? When creating characters,
Uh-huh.
how do you decide which aspects of the people you know in real life makes it into the story?
That's a good question. Um, I guess it just kind of depends on the story I'm creating. Uh, like in Orc Girl, for example, there are a handful of characters that are kind of similar to people that I know, but I don't make them direct copies of an individual person. I just incorporate qualities that I think work for the character and what I think is going to help move the story along or to help give a character more character development. And I think, what better way to do that than by going with what you already know, which is an actual person.
Yeah. One thing that when I wrote The Coolest Way to Kill Yourself, I have a book called The Coolest Way to Kill Yourself.
Yeah, talk about that.
Yeah. But it's true. And a lot of I changed some of the names for, certain reasons. And certain people read the book and like, you wrote about me. And then, but everybody I wrote about, I asked for consent, so I'll say that.
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah.
But I do tell them that, but
Right.
because I want to tell a story. So that goes to the next question: are you
Mhm.
concerned that people will recognize themselves in your work, or that that your portrayal of them will offend them?
I think every creator has that worry that people are going to be offended. Um, and sometimes it's funny. It's sometimes the things that you don't expect them to be offended by. Um, and I think that that's just something you have to expect. That, and I think that's the importance all of making the characters relatable, but making sure they're still different enough that people aren't going to be like, this is a direct copy of me. You want them to have experiences that your audience can see and feel and understand. On the other hand, they don't want it to feel like it's the same person.
Lil S also asks, why orcs as opposed to ogres or similar creatures?
Well, when I started creating Orc Girl, and like I said, I wanted a grown-up fantasy, something for adults, and I wanted to deal. And I think a very grown-up problem that we face is the concept of nuance. That most things are not black and white. That most situations we encounter in life are some mixture of good and bad. Meanwhile, you've got orcs. Orcs are the default bad guys in every fantasy story. They are always the bad guys. And I thought, what's great about this is an opportunity to create a nuanced character to show that, yes, they have some bad qualities. They can be violent, they can be extreme, they can be brash and grotesque, but they also can be compassionate, they can be interesting, they can have their own culture and world, and basically not just be these mindless beasts. They can still be people. And so I guess I could have gone with almost any creature I wanted to, but since orcs are always the bad guys, I thought they worked really well when I was creating a tale about nuance.
And then we have, um, what do people usually say when they find out you're doing all of this?
Well, you see, I have different versions of the story I tell depending on my audience.
Yeah, I know that feeling.
And it's not that I want to be dishonest with people or take them for fools. It's just that, in certain audiences, I can't be 100% open about all that I do. So for some people, I just say, oh, well, I, um, I'll say it like, okay, I just do cosplay. And when I tell them I do like cosplay creature effects, they want to see pictures, and I can show them my Instagram, which is nice and, work friendly. And, you know, is SFW, if you will. But in other situations when it's people that are I'm telling people and I can tell them the full truth, they usually are just like, oh, that's cool. And because I think there's this acceptance within the fetish community that it's all of us are doing some weird shit. So um, I don't really shock anybody within the adult community, but outside of that, I don't always tell people exactly what it is that I do.
Now, what about the evolution of cosplay and makeup?
Uh-huh.
together with the graphic novel. So was cosplay and makeup one of your interests before the graphic novel, or did they develop together?
I mean, I've done cosplay in some capacity for, gosh, probably since I was a teenager. Like my first cosplay was James from Team Rocket of Pokemon, like circa 2000, 2001, But as far as doing like these extreme looks, that did come a lot later. That came, I think, after I started creating the comic. In fact, the first like transformation video I ever did for my store was I turned into an orc, and then it was very simple. It was just painting my body green and maybe doing a little bit of contouring on my face to make it look more interesting, more dynamic. And like I said, it was about a year ago when I did that beast look from X-Men for Fetish Con that I started. I'm like, you know what? I should start doing more creatures like this, because I didn't really see anybody else, especially not in Fetish, making looks like that or like this. And even in cosplay realms, I don't see a whole lot of people making their own prosthetics. So
Yeah.
I was like, I'm that's going to be my niche.
Lil S also asks, what do you do if you saw? What would you do if you saw a fan cosplaying as a character in your book?
Oh my gosh, I would be like, I've made it. I'd be like, I have made it. That is like the ultimate. Like, I'd be so flattered by it. I would probably be a bigger fan of them than they were of me. I'd be like, oh my God, you are so cool. Thank you. And I would just fall all over myself being ridiculous.
Bola Bola has a question. You appreciate getting your feet worship?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I think, and it was something that I didn't quite understand until I'd had it done for me. But what an intimate situation it can really be, and how very personal and, sensual without being overtly sexual it can really be.
Yeah. One of the things that I'm all into the transformation process, especially one of the narratives I enjoy is the whole femdom sissification thing of
Mhm,
man being transformed into a woman
mhm,
by a woman, you know.
mhm.
It's fantasy. It's not real life.
Yeah,
I don't live it, but it's
right.
fantasy. It's great. It's great fantasy.
Yeah.
Um, do you putting all this makeup on someone else to
Uh,
transform someone else? Have you ever done anything like that? What's your view on that? Transforming another person into a monster?
I haven't had much of an opportunity yet. I've I've done other people's clown makeup. And I did for Miss Quinn, which she works with me at Pep, and we're also kind of we're dating now too, so that's cool. Um, and I did her look to look like this character called Astarion from the new Baldur's Gate 3 game. He's a vampire, and I did her makeup to kind of resemble like sort of that kind of gaunt, almost very tired look that a vampire would have. So I guess that's the most creature looks I've done on other people. Most of it's just been on me.
So if you were going to transform me, right?
Uh-huh.
Let's say I'm there now, and you could transfer. You need me for something,
Uh-huh.
whatever. Knowing my body type, my personality, my face, and everything like that, what would work? How could you What would you transform me into?
That's a good question. Well, okay. First
I
of
want to
all,
be good. I'm a good person, so I want to be a cool, good person. I'm not a evil villain who's gonna,
you don't want
end
to
the
be a
world and
villain.
shit. I don't want to conquer the world. I want my people to have a
Hmm.
good time. That's really it.
Well, I guess my
Help,
question
help them
is
out
there a
yourself.
is there a character in particular, like, or any type of creature that you have kind of an affinity for or a connection with, like whether it's elves or orcs or whatever you're into? Like, is there something that
Gandalf.
speaks to you? Gandalf? There you go. Well, it's not really a
I get Gandalf.
creature.
He likes the Hobbit's herb.
Huh. Let's see. That's a good question. Hmm.
I don't
What
know.
if
We'll
I
get to
made
that
you look
later.
like a dragon of some kind, like a
Ooh, I'll be
humanoid dragon?
Khaleesi's dragon.
Huh?
Yeah. I'll be
Yeah.
Khaleesi's dragon.
Yeah, that'd be so
I,
good.
I serve my queen. Yeah.
Serve your queen. There you go.
There you
Oh,
go.
see now how kinky can you make? That would be a cool scene, wouldn't it? You know,
Right?
you know.
Seriously, what? I want a dominatrix who could dom a dragon.
Oh my God,
That
yeah.
power.
And that's interesting because it kind of subverts expectations, I think. Because, when you look at, the dragon, they're big and powerful, but, for um, someone to tame something that big and powerful, I think that would be really hot and very different.
So, out of all of these characters in these fantasy novels, these graphic novels, these movies, literature, and stuff like that,
Uh-huh.
what one just does it for you? Just like really just shakes your core.
Hmm.
You know what
Let's.
I'm talking about.
Yes. Oh, I totally get it. Let's see. Don't get me wrong. I have a connection emotionally to every look I've done. There's something that it symbolizes for me. But for me, I would say Beast from X-Men. And I'm going to go back to kind of what I was talking about earlier about shame and how shame has such a big connection to my creature looks. I think that I had a lot of shame for who I was in my sexuality for a very long time. And when I decided to do Beast, and it was a much more extreme look than I'd ever done ever before. And I remember having the look on, and I'm walking around the convention center and just catching myself in the mirror. And when I talked about that feeling of relief, well, that's what came over me in that moment. I felt relieved because the monster was on the outside for once. It wasn't something in my mind that was torturing me. Um, and Beast I relate to so much as a character because in the story he had an accident, and that's why he's fuzzy and blue. He was already a mutant, but he looked mostly normal. The blue fuzzy thing didn't come until he had a lab accident, and he has to live with that forever. The consequence of his actions. It basically escalated his mutation. And, there's something in my past that I really regretted. And I have to live with those consequences. And it's been years of struggle to really recover from that. So when I was playing Beast and playing this character who was a victim of his own actions, I just felt like, oh, okay, this is
Yeah.
okay. Even if you are ashamed, you can still deal with that shame. So that would be the character that really does it for me the most.
I can totally relate because when I'm in mode, I feel, especially when it comes to shame and stuff like that, it's an
Mhm.
exercise, an outlet
Yeah.
to not only accept it, but almost use it as a fetish. So shame plays a major role in kink.
Yeah.
How do you deal with family members who shame you?
I'm very fortunate that now I have, my family, they know what I do for a living. It's not a big secret. And, while they may not always understand, they do accept, and they accept me and they support me. And so I'm very, very lucky for that. Um, but I think that times have changed a lot, and the people in my life have changed a lot too. And how do you deal with that shame? I think the best thing you got to do is, like, you're an adult and you don't necessarily need the approval of everyone in your life to do what you do. Um, you know, it, it's one thing for your spouse or something like that, but as an adult, your family doesn't need to 100% approve or be behind what you want to do for you to still do it. You just have to be like, you know what? You say to them, I appreciate your input. We have differing opinions on this, but this is what I'm going to do. And I think it's best that we just kind of leave it out of the equation when we talk.
Those are wise words.
No, thank you.
Definitely, those are wise words.
Thank you.
IDK says, currently, do you have a personal slave?
Personal slave right now? I do not.
Very good. So the next question, let's get back to Pep Love. Although it is taboo free, right? What are some protocols that you have for uncomfortable calls? Because I'm sure you get some creeps.
Let's see. Protocols. Like, I think it's just regular check-ins are good. With the person I'm playing with as well as with myself, to be like, to remember that it is just a fantasy. This is just a conversation. And ultimately, I hold the power to end the conversation at any point that it gets to be too much. And I guess, my goal is just to also communicate when things do bother me. Don't just sit there and take it because I'm worried they're not going to like me. And that's something I've had to learn how to do. I think I really struggled with that at the beginning, that sometimes people would say something uncomfortable to me, and I would just kind of deal with it. But now I'd be like, and I try to say it politely. I'm like, I don't think I really like the direction that's going. Why don't we? And then I suggest something else. And usually I can redirect and it's fine. It's rare that I simply cannot gain control back anymore. But that took a lot of time. That took a lot of work.
How comfortable are you playing the evil genius, evil villain role?
I freaking love it. It is so much fun. I am loving playing Mojo as a character because I've never played a villain before. It's really funny. I play these monsters and these, misunderstood creatures that are steeped in nuance, but to actually be a villain, this is kind of a new venture for me, and I'm having an absolute blast with it. I have no problem stepping into the role.
Shout out to MF Doom, all caps. Spelled I don't know if you know anything about MF Doom, but he's the villain. So when you're not a monster, when you're not an orc, what's your typical day like?
Oh, let's see. Well, usually I wake up, I'll have my coffee. Gotta have that coffee. Like, that is like my lifeblood. But and then I will usually, check on my emails, and I log on to Pep in the morning, and I edit my videos. I sometimes take my Stan Winston course online in between calls. I draw, either working on Orc Girl or sometimes an art commission, or just something that's on my mind. I also will go out into the shop, and which, by the way, so I have an external shop now, and I've dedicated a part of it to my creature making, which I call the laboratory. And I say it like that every time because I'm just nuts. And so I go out and I work on my my prosthetics. I work on the costumes. I got my sewing machine out there, and I'll spend a lot of my day out there.
So how did you set up this shop? There's a workshop. I'm
Yeah.
Yes. So what is needed in a workshop for you?
Oh, let's see. For me, I need a good table that I can work on. Something, and then another, like a table just to have for my sewing machine or for whatever like smaller projects I'm working on. I also have a nice big table that I can use to spread out fabric when I need to sew things. I have a shelf that I keep, or it's not really a shelf. It's more like kind of an organizer, but it has little drawers that I keep all my paints and my brushes and everything I need to create with. And I'm actually starting to outgrow that a little bit too. So I'm going to have to rethink how I organize things.
What was the last dream you remember?
Oh, geez. Last dream I remember. I honestly can't remember one right now. I know that's not a very fun answer. I can't think
All right.
of
A lot of
one.
people don't. A lot of people don't. All right. A lot of platforms, right? Twitter became X. I don't see you on Friendster anymore, or AOL chat or anything.
Oh gosh.
Platforms are always changing. They're always evolving. Many people get burnt out with their kink life. You see this happen to others. So, what platforms are you getting the most action with these days?
Let's see. Probably still, Twitter or X is always very active for me. And I'm usually doing well there. I will say TikTok and YouTube have done really well for me. In fact, I've got, a lot of views recent on some of my most recent videos on TikTok. And I was very reluctant to try TikTok. I was like, oh no, I'm too old for this. There's no way. But it's worked really well for my cosplay stuff. And I've actually have a blast using it. It's been so much fun.
One of the one of the things that I think you and I have in common is the fact that we create this art that's even different for the genres that we create.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So
Yes.
like I wrote it just like we both wrote books basically
Uh-huh.
that are very personal and they're actual narrative books with beginnings, middle, and ending. They're quality things, but they're also filled with sex, right?
Yes.
So because of either the subject matter or anything like that, it's hard to promote.
Yes.
So how did you promote Orc Girl? Because a lot of the reason before you answer, a lot of people on this show are in a similar situation. Shout out to Dirk Cooper, right?
Mhm.
Or
Oh,
Ariel
Derek.
Agency
Oh.
or Melissa Todd. These are all
Uh-huh.
kinky authors who are making. They're not just making smut. They're making something that's from the heart. You know what I mean? How do you promote this stuff?
It's hard. Um, I think, a lot of word of mouth has helped. I used to go to events a lot more and I would, sell different items, little trinkets, and I'd sell the comic and I'd be able to sit there and just talk to people about the comic. Um, and that helped a lot. Getting on podcasts, for example, that was a good. In fact, I got a lot of readers from that. Um, Using social media, being active as much as possible, but it's not a steady slope. It's not a linear experience. It can go up and down, and it can be so discouraging sometimes because you're like, man, I just want to get people to listen,
Yeah.
and people's attention spans are shorter and shorter these days. It is incredibly hard to get people to pay attention.
Hmm. So after all that, in general,
Uh-huh.
kinky people, how can
Yeah.
we make money? If you're a kinky person and they're not the stereotypical beautiful person, you know,
Mhm.
how can you make money if you don't do porn or but you still can?
Hmm. Let's see. Well, that is a tough one too. Some people who may not really want to be on camera will do audio recordings and will like put them on YouTube, but keep them keep them suggestive but not too sexual to cause a problem. Um, and they'll make money from the ad revenue, or they'll sell them on other sites, for example, just recordings. I see a lot of ASMR stuff on YouTube these days. That's basically like little like mini stories that are kind of kinky. In fact, there's a lot of transformation stuff that's like that because,
Oh
admittedly,
yeah.
without a Hollywood budget, it's kind of difficult to create in actual like a show, um, or a movie or a video, some of the looks like to create like a transformation storyline.
We're getting some flack about sissy hypno.
Oh,
We're turning our man. All that stuff.
good grief.
So ridiculous. All right. Rapid fire Rex. You know the drill with this. They don't have to
Uh-huh.
be the be all end all. I'm going to ask you to
Mhm.
recommend something and you recommend it. Just something
Okay.
that you like. All right.
Okay.
Recommend a film.
Let's see. Uh, the Professor Marston and the Wonder Women.
Oh, I want to see that. I did not
It-
see that yet.
You'll love
I'm going
it.
to check
You
that
will
out.
love it.
I
It's
recently saw Infinity Pool, which I thought was wild. And also Strange, no, not Poor Things. Poor Things, I thought was very, very good.
Yeah, that's fun, isn't it? I like
That was all right. All right, recommend a book.
recommend a book. Phantom by Susan Kay.
Ah,
Favorite book, hands down.
recommend a song.
Uh, Prisoner by Miley Cyrus and Dua Lipa.
Recommend art, any medium.
Any medium.
Or dead.
Let's see.
Or artist.
Let's see. There's this one Israeli artist. I forget his name, but he does all these I think is a it's like Jude DeVere, I think is his name. But he does all these comics about his life with his wife and kids, and they're all so cute, and they're both artists and who work from home, and he does all these really cute scenarios with him and his wife, and I love his stories. They're so pretty, and his art is just beautiful.
Finally, recommend a meal.
Recommend a meal. Let's see. How about chicken korma? I love Indian food.
Ooh, yeah, I love Indian food too. I definitely. Where are you living these days? What? On the East Coast, right? Or no,
Yeah.
no, I'm sorry, you're on the West Coast. Or no, you're on the East Coast. You're in Jersey.
Oh yeah, I'm East Coast. I'm actually in Florida these days.
Oh, Florida.
I moved here in late 2017.
So tell us about. I remember, Jersey. You were in. We were both at Exotica. You're doing your thing. With, one of the festivals or something, and it's different. New Jersey is a lot different than Florida.
Oh yeah.
Tell us about the kink community in Florida these days.
Let's see. Well, I know it more from the industry side, of course, but there is an active kink community down here. If you go out towards Orlando, there's the Woodshed. It's a very popular dungeon, and it's a great facility. I've been there. There's another dungeon in Tampa, and I am blanking on the name, but if you Google dungeon in Tampa, you'll find it. And I used to go to that one more often, as that's what I'm closer to. But there are a handful of munches around the area too that you could find through FetLife.
So, in the story of Orc Girl, right? Can we expect another Orc Girl?
Oh yes, I will return to it eventually. It's just, I'm really dealing with some serious burnout because, as I said earlier, it's tough to market that. And I was spending so much of my time, so much of my life doing that I honestly didn't really have much of a life outside of my comic. And that's not sustainable long term, unfortunately. There's a time where you're like, I'm exhausted. So I just need a long break, but it's not over. I love the story too much. It's too personal for me to let it go completely.
Can you add me as a character? I'm a journalist in the world of orcs.
I would be delighted to add you. 100%.
Throw parties. Yeah, I throw underground parties. Kinky orc sex parties. Yeah, you gotta have munches in your orc world, right?
I think the orcs are just kind of kinky by nature in my world.
Yeah, that's true.
But I would be delighted to feature you as a character in Orc Girl. Oh, that'd be wonderful. We'll talk. We'll work that out. That sounds like so much fun.
Speaking of fantasies, right? Okay. Let's say I do this to everybody and it changes. I've asked you this before. I'm going to ask you it again. But let's say you have your friends involved now. You have endless resources. You can go anywhere in the world. You can have anybody, living or dead. And you know what? This is Amy Mercury. Throw in fantasy. You could throw in any fantasy creature you want. You could throw in Dr. Zayas. You could throw.
Yes.
Amy Mercury. What is your ultimate kinky fantasy?
Oh gosh, that's a really good question, and because sometimes it can change depending on my mood. But I think my ultimate kinky fantasy would involve me getting to have sex with all of my cartoon crushes at some point, and
list them.
Oh, sure. How about, of course, Beast from X-Men? That would have to happen. Let's see. Mojo Jojo. I have a shameless crush on him, and it's so weird that I end up cosplaying the characters I have crushes on, but that's just a thing I do. Let's see. of course, I'd have to fuck my own character, Vargan from Orc Girl, Wreck-It Ralph. Uh, let's see, uh, who else?
John C. Riley rules.
Yeah, I would like to. I totally would fuck Dr. Zero from Planet of the Apes, like hands down, and Caesar. And yes, I know that's so messed up. I don't care, but it's just a thing. I like their personalities. Um, but yeah, that's just to name a few. That's the ones that I would like to. That would be my ultimate fantasy: getting to fuck my fictional characters.
And where would this take place? And what would
Okay.
happen? How would you just have missionary style?
Oh gosh, we need the details. Kiss and tell. Um, let's see, where would it take place? It'd have to be some kind of lavish home, like lavish chateau or castle by the sea, in just this very romantic setting, because I am hopelessly romantic. Um, let's see. I feel like each character would have their own style. Like, I feel like Beast would be like rough in bed, but ultimately like sweet. I think Wreck-It Ralph would be kind of confused, but he'd get into it. I think Mojo would just be like this, unhinged power top and a little rough, but ultimately sweet at the end. Each character would be a little different.
Yeah, definitely. Have you ever seen this? Hanging with Dr. Z?
I have not seen that.
Oh,
No.
it's awesome. It's awesome. Dana Gould, right?
Uh-huh.
Is Dana Gould is like he's got all these people, Matt Browner, Jason Alexander from Seinfeld, Howie Mandel's on it. I don't know
Oh
if you can
my
see all this stuff.
gosh.
But Dana Gould's a comedian. He also did
Mm.
Stan versus Evil. Very funny guy, very dark sense of humor. So he started a show called Hanging with Dr. Z, where Dr. Z from Planet of the Apes is
Uh-huh.
now like a 70s talk show host in
Oh
California. And because he's a hit with the movies. So now he hosts the show.
my gosh.
I highly recommend it.
I would
All
love
right.
to watch that. That's so my vibe. And I do want to cosplay Dr. Zero someday, specifically, just so that is so up my alley.
Stan Vladimir asks, do you have any video game characters that you had a crush on?
Let's see. That's a good question. Winston from Overwatch. I really have a thing for the apes. I don't know what's going on with that. But yeah, I have a big thing for him. And Ganon from Legend of Zelda.
All right, we are winding things down. We're all on the
Yes,
path.
I am.
Where do you want your kinky path to take you next, Amy?
Well, honestly, I just want to keep improving on my creature looks, get them to look even better. I really want to see where I can go with this and just how much better I can get with my skills over time. I have a lot of joy working on these creatures. In fact, I, had a moment the other day where I'm just out in the shop and I'm working on stuff for it. And I'm like looking at it, I'm going like, wow, I said, I really love this. I freaking love it. And to be able to not only create the creatures, but to be able to make content with them, make videos, make naughty videos, which is what I want to see. I want to see more stuff like that because that's my thing. And knowing that I'm putting that out in the world, yeah, that's where I want it to go. I want to keep making this stuff and make even more of it.
Oh, and everybody, please support Amy Mercury. Orc Girl, Pep Love. Only, how can people support you, Amy? List everything you want to promote. Everything.
Let's see. Well, you can find me on Twitter/X at just Amy Mercury, all one word. That's Amy with an I. You can find me on Instagram, the Amy Mercury, TikTok at Orc Girl Art. I'm on YouTube. In fact, I go by Professional Monster Amy here on YouTube, and you can see me doing the looks. I do like a walkthrough and do tutorials on how to do the looks. And you can find my comic, orcgirl.com, and there's lots of links there of other places you can find me on all those places.
Oh, and Stan asks the ultimate question: would you
Oh,
choose Alien or the Predator?
oh, the Predator. Yeah.
He's
Totally Predator.
wild.
Easy answer. Got it.
Yeah.
So I'm almost done with the look here. I am the only thing I'm missing is I've got these hair pieces that I put in, and so I've got that, and I need to do the neck, and then I basically just put the outfit on. Do you guys want to see all of that, or are we getting
Yes.
to the point we need to wrap up?
Yes, we do. And we have a show at 8 o'clock
Mhm.
Sundays. I hope you're coming on that. We were talking
Yes.
about that, right?
Yeah.
Oh, this is gonna be good.
Yeah.
Yes. The subject is protecting yourself in the kink community,
Mm-hmm.
especially Niga's got some stories.
Oh, yes, that's very valuable. It can get, there be monsters out there, and not the fun kind that I want to fuck. So
There. I like that. I'm gonna quote that too.
yeah, there be monsters out there, and not the kind I want to fuck. I'm really glad you appreciate these quotes.
I do. I love these quotes. Let's play a little game. All
Okay.
right. We got some time. All right. It's a word association game. Let's
Okay.
have some fun.
Okay.
All right. Let's put some things in there. Garter belts. All right. So, all right. Um,
Okay.
Daddy Doms.
Daddy Doms. Fet life.
Ah, ah. All right. All right. Before we get to that, because I got to put some things in, I want to talk about how people approach you on FetLife. Because,
Oh.
first of all, you're not the stereotypical like Dom,
Uh-huh.
right? You're not.
Mhm.
And you're not like a stereotypical sub. So
Mhm.
when people go into FetLife, they know nothing, they automatically choose one or the other. And
Yeah.
then they realize that kink is really complicated, right?
Uh-huh.
So when a guy comes up to you with a dick pic or something like that, I know your responses have changed throughout the years, but like, tell us about that. How do people approach you on FetLife, and how should they, and how should they not?
Okay. I think that's a good question. I think the best way to approach me is just to be polite, you know, make your desires known. You know, I'm not going to be rude to you if you're not rude to me. You know, I might politely decline the offer, but I'm never going to be mean, but I appreciate directness. I will never get offended by somebody just saying, this is what I want. Can you provide it? I might just say, no, that's not something I do, but thanks anyway. What really is the wrong way to approach me is to just, for one thing, being presumptuous, assuming that I do something, or to be rude, or to, if I say no, like, don't get angry with me. Like, I have people ask me all the time if I do in-person sessions, and I'll say, no, I appreciate it, but that's just not what I do. I just do, videos and phone sex. And most of the time people are just like, oh, okay. And then that's it. Or they don't respond. And that's fine. But every now and then I'll get people who are really rude and angry with me. And I'm like, what do you want me to do? If you went into McDonald's and you asked for a taco and they said, we don't have it, would you get mad at them? Like, you are literally coming to me asking me to do something I don't do. And I said, no, I don't do it. Why are you getting mad? So the rudeness is the wrong way to approach me. Demanding is the wrong way to approach me. To continue to push me when I've said no, that is the wrong way to approach me. So if that answers that question.
Oh, definitely. That answers. There's an old question that I skipped by accident.
Oh.
Back to the pep calls, right? And
Uh-huh.
this is a great way to promote Pep Love. What are the
Yes.
key elements to double doming or double teaming someone on a pep call?
Oh gosh. For one thing, I love doubles. They are so much fun. I love seeing how the other ladies will interpret the same scenario and seeing the different ways that each lady does it, from different from each other, different from me. Uh, so I think the core element is just learning to work together. Um, Learning to, okay, how do we get to this person collectively where we want them to go? And it's really good to just try like bouncing things off of each other, be like, well, maybe he like this, and we gauge the reaction, and if like, oh, okay, he seems to like it, then we go through with it. I hope that
Oh yeah,
I hope
totally.
that
There
helps.
are, but each pep lady has a different personality.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
So how is a call with Giselle different than like a call with Sarah
Hmm. Let's see, that's kind
or
of tough.
Crystal or somebody?
Uh-huh. It's something that I can't quite describe. I think that Sarah said it once, that she's like, my brand is something that uh like you can't I can't remember exactly how she put it. It's like, it's something, you know exactly what it is, but you can't quite describe it. I think that's the vibe with each person, is you may not always be able to pick what it is, but you just know somehow that this is their style. I guess a big difference would be in the kinds of calls that they are willing to do and the roles they're willing to play as well. Because some ladies might be more willing to play like the nurturing mother figure, for example,
Yeah.
as a dominant, but some ladies aren't into that. They want to be something a little bit more harsh, and or something more direct. So it is different when I've done calls, like, because I like doing kind of the mommy dom nurturing call, but I've been with ladies who aren't into that, and it's so funny to have kind of the good cop bad cop routine
Oh
between the
yeah,
two of
it's really crazy fun. It's so good. So I was thinking, right, of crowdfunding a Pep Love call for me. So
Okay.
I'm a big fan of the story of O, right?
Okay.
I kind of grew up with it.
Oh,
Some
cool.
people were reading To Kill a Mockingbird and J.D. Salinger. I was reading Pony Riage. So,
Brilliant. Love it.
so no, I read those two. I'm well read. Uh,
Love it.
all right. So the call I wanted to originally make and have people fund it basically is I'm sold off from Pep Love to Pep Love Woman, each
Okay.
one. So what would yours, like, if someone sold me off to you? What would be? It could be, obviously it's phone sex. It could be anything. Would I be like in the jungle? Would I be in a cave? Would it be in a castle? Would it be in a modern house in New York City? What?
Ooh, that's a good question. I guess it depends on, what our session would be about. Are you leaving this purely in my hands, or am I
Oh yeah, that's the
working a
whole
scenario that you've
whimsical
got?
point of it. Yeah,
Hmm.
do whatever you want.
Well, I mean, okay, if I had like my way, yet like this would take place in, like, I don't know, some ancient ruins in the jungle, and you've come to the altar in the middle seeking like this ancient object, and it turns you into some kind of creature. And I, as am the mistress, the ancient priestess or something of this old temple, and I'm guiding you through this transformation experience.
Oh, that's great. I love the whole transformation narrative.
Uh,
Okay, let's word association. Back to it.
okay.
Garter belts.
Garter belts. Mm. So, like, just one word associated?
Word or phrase, first thing that pops in your head. Don't overthink it.
Yeah. Difficult. Garter-
French maids. Oh yeah, no, garter belts are very difficult. I personally like the challenge. I view it as an artistic obstruction.
yes.
You know.
I love it too. I do love them. They are fun. I love the way they look. And it is kind of a ritual to put them on, is it not? Do you mind
Okay.
actually? Can I be putting on the costume as we do the word association, or would
Of
you rather
course.
me do that?
Yeah, please do. We got a show in a half hour, so yeah, we can take a break too.
Oh, no, it's fine. I'll bring the costume over, and I can be putting it on. Well, we go. Because there is a process. It is many pieces. This is probably more pieces than I've had for any other costume I've done. So I will tilt the camera up though, so I can be seen. Okay, continue, sorry.
Wow, that's beautiful. Okay, French maids outfits.
Let's see. Fun.
Okay. Daddy Doms, you said Fet Life.
Yeah.
The 50s housewife dynamic.
Ooh, leave it to Beaver.
Splashing.
Not my thing.
Rope.
Suspension.
Medical play.
I'm a doctor, not an engineer.
Sissification.
Pretty princess.
Vacuum beds.
Vacuum beds. Ooh. Let's see. It's a tough one. I do love them. I guess I would just say yes, please, to a vacuum bed. That's my.
Face slapping.
Hot in the heat of the moment.
And piss.
Piss. Ooh. Drink up.
And we reach the end. No pun intended. That.
Well, it's a messy job, but I guess someone's got to do it.
Yeah. When it comes to the calls at Pep Love, right? Would you say you get a common one that's like a typical one that's geared towards you specifically, as opposed to the other ladies? And what are they like?
Let's see. I get a lot of people that are looking for that nurturing mommy dom. And I think that, I think partially it's my aesthetic. But I think also I do kind of foster that kind of nurturing motherly vibe. Or at least I like to do that with the people I play with. So I probably get more people that want to call me mommy and have that gentle, loving domination experience than probably anything else.
What do you think that says about society and the state of the world today?
Well, let's see. I think that, the world these days is really challenging. And I think our kinks for a lot of us are an escape. They are a way of dealing with stress. Because let's face it, what is the one thing that at the end of the day that you can do that's completely free, that takes all the stress away for just a few glorious seconds? And that is masturbation. So I think that the appeal for a lot of people of the mommy dom is to have someone that's going to take charge, but is still going to be loving and understanding and help guide them, as well as help kind of, get them off. I don't think it's necessarily like an Oedipus complex. I don't think that that's really the case for most people that are into it. I think it's just why a lot of people might gravitate towards a daddy dom figure. It's that loving, gentle, nurturing domination, as opposed to a more harsh domination.
Definitely. And plus, you know what? I have this phrase that we used to say in pure art room, meaning like there's a certain kind of energy the artists have. You know what I mean? Pure art room, and that's what you can capture. That's why I love you, Amy.
Oh,
seriously, you are magnificent. We're gonna wrap it up, but let's and you're gonna come and protect us, right?
Yeah.
The 8 o'clock show. Yes,
absolutely.
You're a protector. We need you. We need the villain.
and I'll be in full gear. Yes, I'm getting dressed right now. This is actually what I'm putting on is a muscle suit. It bulks out my arms and shoulders to look more ape-like. And when I put on the fur over it, it'll just kind of fold over and actually look like I have beefier muscles. And it kind of creates the
Can we
illusion that
see
my
that?
arms are a little bit longer. Yeah, sure. And, it makes it look longer like, well, like an ape, as apes have longer arms proportionally speaking than humans do. But also they don't have much of a neck. So that was the goal of having I can't obviously change the size of my neck, but I can make my shoulders taller so that it kind of makes my neck look shorter by comparison. And that's basically what this does. And I pin it. There's like a little hook and eye. There we go. And so it creates this illusion that my shoulders are taller.
Nice. So now, if you had like a, and I'm thinking if you're all orked out, or or if you had a, do you play the sub role, or like in not in this character, but
Mhm.
sometimes when you get in your space, your orc space, do you play the sub role? Do you like playing the dom role or the sub role?
If I'm cosplaying as an orc, then I feel myself being more dominant. But I think if I'm just kind of having like a little mental fantasy where I'm imagining myself with an orc, in that case, I would be more in the submissive role.
Now, as you put that on, do you feel like you want to destroy some shit?
To take over the world. Yes. I do kind of feel like I am ready to take on the world when I don the whole look. This is interesting. I kind of invented this technique for putting on fake ears. When I did the werewolf look, I made these cool, like furry ears, but they were too heavy to stay just like be attached to my ear. So I'm like, well, how am I going to put them on my head? And I thought, well, I could get a regular headband, but the headband will shift. So what I did is I created this sort of wire frame that hooks around your actual ear. So it keeps it in place on your head. And if you wear a wig over it, it covers up your actual ear and creates a very seamless look. So once I put
Wow.
the wig on,
Yes, put the wig on, please. That's cool.
you won't even see it. So I really have appreciated you letting me put it on camera for you today. It's been cool kind of going through the process with you. So see, when you have the wig on, you don't even see the wire because it kind of it covers everything.
Transformation.
Yes.
Magnificent.
Yes. Oh, you got to see the helmet. This helmet was so hard to do. It was like the hardest cosplay item I've ever made.
What? How did you make it? What's it made out of?
It's made out of EVA foam. You know, like that craft foam you'd use in like grade school to like create like hearts and stuff with. It's like a thin foam. And I just had to kind of cut it and shape it and then paint it. And the gems that are in the front, I made out of Sculpey that I painted as well. So, ta-da. And EVA foam, I'd worked with it some before, but never something a shape this complex. So it was definitely a learning experience, but I did it. I had many frustrating nights. It took me like several weeks of working to get it done.
Wow. This is absolutely beautiful.
Oh, thank you.
Once again, please let's promote. How can people get in touch with you, support you, give you money, support your art?
Well, once again, you can find all my links on my Twitter. If you just go to just Amy Mercury, all one word, that's Amy with an I. And you can find me on Instagram, the Amy Mercury. You can follow me on TikTok. That is Orc Girl Art on TikTok. And I post links to my different websites where you can see me transform and where I do all kinds of fun, kinky stuff. And you can follow along in my adventures that way.
I want to end it like this. The kink rabbit hole goes deep.
Yes.
When I first met you, I mean, I knew you're into this stuff. We talked about like that, but you've evolved in this beautiful,
Oh, Nick, thank you.
beautiful way. It's amazing. And and you just keep on doing it, which like I said,
Thank
every
you.
time I saw you in my Instagram or my Twitter, I was like, she's doing it. She's doing something. It was wonderful.
Thank you.
So what's kind of lighting your fire? What are some kinks and fetishes that are interesting you, keeping you interested, but don't really have much experience with yet?
That's a good question. Things that I found interesting recently that I haven't had a chance to do much of. Uh, I'm interested in primal play. I've heard about this, but I've never actually had a chance to try it. I've been doing more, a lot of bondage shoots lately. I'd really like to learn how to actually tie people up to, do the rope work, and especially to do kind of artistic, pretty shibari style rope work. I think that would be an invaluable skill working in my industry. I would love to and I've been tied up a lot and I've done some very simple ties on other people, but I'd like to learn more.
I love just having the titles and you looking like that, talking about rope, and we're gonna let's have some fun with this. So, all right. So, what kind of rope would would this character use, as opposed to like the typical, like what would be, where would you be, and who would you tie up?
Let's see. Well, I think as Mojo, he would probably have something instead of nice, soft rope like bamboo rope, he'd be using like hemp, something that's like rough and scratchy, just, and especially something that'd be like sort of comically large, like you see like in cartoons, like the girl getting tied up to the railroad tracks. I could totally see Mojo doing that. And as far as who he tied up, I mean, if he could tie up the Powerpuff Girls, he would, but they usually kick his ass before they get that far. I would like to see Mojo tie up Miss Bellum. That would be entertaining. There you go, coconut rope. Paul said that.
Another thing I want you to, please tell us more about primal play. You're an animal.
Well, you see, I don't know that much about it, hence why I'd kind of like to learn more and get involved with it. I think that would really work well for the monster element. I feel like a monster would want to engage in very intense, almost animalistic, primal sex.
I think we have a new thing, monster play.
Monster play, there we go.
Tell us all about, you're creative. What's monster play? If this dungeon has, yes, we accept monster play. We can do that here. Other dungeons don't have monster play, but yeah, we do. What's monster?
Oh gosh, that sounds like a dream come true to me. Is to make monster play a thing, where you either dress up, especially if I were dressed up as a monster, but even if you can't get dressed up, just playing the monster. Because like something I always loved about movies growing up was where you had like these stories with a monster, and there was always a pretty maiden, like think Creature from the Black Lagoon. And he wanted to capture her and basically make her his monster bride. And I was so into that, like growing up. I was like, yes, but the girl never wants the monster, and I actually did a whole series of art projects called Monsters and the Maidens Who Love Them. And it was about these sort of consensual monster and maiden stories. And they were cute. They were drawn to be kind of cutesy and fun. But anyway, I guess for me, monster play, it would be like the monster getting the girl, but then the girl being into it. Like,
Yeah.
I always wanted Christine to choose the Phantom. I'm like, why did you choose the other guy? He was so boring. But no, I always want, I always wanted Mina Harker to go for Dracula.
What about King Kong?
King Kong. Oh yeah, yeah. I'm so into that. I'm like, I so wanted Fay Ray, but of course, I actually really like the 1970. I think it's 1973 version with
Is it Jeff Bridges?
Jeff Bridges. Yeah, I love. That's my favorite version of King Kong. Um, but I always kind of want to. And I think in the 2001 remake, they develop the main girl character a little bit more, and she actually kind of has her own sort of feelings for King Kong, even if it's not exactly the way he feels. But yeah, I kind of always wanted them to. I want the monster to win.
Yeah.
So I guess
So
monster play would be where the monster wins in the end.
So I guess before we end, because we got another show we got to
Yeah.
do, are we all monsters inside? All right. I asked this before, right? And I'm going to ask it again and see if it goes through. First of all, Stan says, I love to be Venom or the alien.
Oh, hell yeah. That'd be so cool. I'm so into that.
So please, everybody, stay tuned for in 15 minutes. Go to Sundays with Nico Noir and Amy Mercury. We're gonna have some fun. We're gonna talk about.
Yeah.
We're protected now. We're glad we got. We're glad you're. So glad you're here for us.
That's
So the final question: are we all monsters inside?
I like, to reiterate earlier, the monster I think is our most authentic self. I think that when we embrace the monster, the parts of us that is the monster the bad part of us, or is it just the part that people have a harder time understanding? I don't think that monster is a bad thing. It's just meaning that you're willing to go against society's rules for the sake of your own happiness. As long as you're not harming anyone, I don't think that's a problem. So I guess, are we monsters at heart? All of us, if we all have a part of it, because I think every one of us has a little part deep within inside us that we worry that the world won't understand. So in a sense, we are. And I argue it's actually kind of a good thing.
Right on. Thank you. Thank you, Amy Mercury. Everybody, please go support Amy Mercury. Get 15% off all the inventory at Locked in Lust with offer code YKF. I have a GoFundMe. I had some health issues. Also,
Yes.
Spotify. Subscribe to Spotify, please.
Yes.
And subscribe to this channel. Just go to Your Kinky Friends Patreon. And also, I have a book called Your Kinky Friends. I'm making it into an audiobook.
Yes. It's a great book, guys.
Thank you. Thank you.
Amy
has been since literally like day one. I started promoting this. I became friends with Amy, and I'm so thankful Amy is in my life. Amy is an inspiration to everybody out there in the kink community. Seriously.
Well, Nick, I feel the same about you. Your Kinky Friends is such a great look at the kink community. It's honest, it's sincere, it's fun, and it's relatable. And I really appreciate what you do for the kink community. You let people come and talk about it, and it's you don't just talk the talk, you walk the walk. You embody the spirit of your kinky friends every day, and that's very admirable, because there's a lot of people that say a lot of things but they don't follow through. So I really appreciate you being your sincere and authentic self.
I appreciate that, Amy. So much love in my heart. Everybody, stay tuned. Sunday, YKF Sunday sessions with Nico. And, buy my books. Check out yourkinkyfriends.com. Be cool, be kind, keep an open mind.
Yes. Thank you again, Nick. Bye, everybody.